YouTube, it's Andy again. Project I've got for today is replacing the lower ball joint on a 2002 Jeep Liberty two-wheel drive. The lower ball joint on the passenger side began a popping sound not too long ago, and it's only gotten worse. So I bought another AC Delco part. I'm going to replace it today, and okay, let's get started. Okay, here we're starting with some tools. This is a Craftsman Impact I've had. I think I found it. I can't remember. I've had this thing at least 30 years. It's old, but it works. A little oil to go with it, and this thing is so old that it doesn't even have a barcode on it. So this stuff is probably from the early 70s or even 60s, I don't know. This is a tool I picked up recently at Harbor Freight. It's a 3/4 inch forged ball joint separator. I thought I'd give it a try, see how it works. I think with my coupon and everything, I paid about $6 for it. So we'll see if it's worth $6 or if it was a total waste of money. Then my actual part. It's my AC Delco Advantage. Here's the part number for those of you that would have an interest in using AC Delco. See, I bought this recently. Again, a coupon. It's a ball joint service kit. Harbor Freight. I think I ended up paying about $55-$60 for it. I thought it was very reasonable. If you're going to do just one or two, it's probably not worth buying. But I thought, in the future, if I'm going to do more stuff, it's an investment. It has value. If I get tired of it, I can always sell it later. I got a 4-pound hammer. Got me a little ball peen. And what I call the old pickle fork, the ball joint separator. Getting the old one out, might as well use that. And a set of impact sockets from Harbor Freight. The only reason I have these brand new is I've broken several in the past. I took them back to their store and they say just go get you another set. So I did, and I got that for free. Anyway, all right, let's get started. I'm going to get that wheel pulled off, and I'll edit out some of the things that are obvious and time-consuming yet simple, like removing the wheel. Here we go. Couple more tools to point out. Floor jack, obviously, to lift the Jeep. Jack stand to support the weight. I've got kind of hard to see back there in the back, wheel chocks behind the rear tire, and obvious things like a breaker bar, torque wrench. Okay, when you're removing the castle nut from your tie rod end, it's got a little cotter pin that goes through it, so we're going to take that out first. It's a 21mm socket. That's what we're going to use to remove it with. Okay, at this point, I've removed the caliper, suspended it so it doesn't put any tension on the brake line. Removed the caliper bracket, rotor, all that came right off, no problem. I'm going to separate the tie rod end from this. Turn it so I can get a little better view in there and you can see it, and we'll start working on removing the nuts off of the upper and lower ball joints. Okay, beginning to use this, you got a bolt that comes in the bottom and provides pressure on this lever. There's two pivoting points. I had to move it from the lower to the upper because the distance between where I'm going to try to put this in between here to the stud was too short. This gives me more room. Well, guess what? Didn't even need it. It worked, but not the way I expected it to. All right. Okay, it's 21mm, but I couldn't use a regular 21mm long socket because the length of it is too close to the ground. So I've got, this is another socket I happen to have. It's 21mm, it's a swivel and it's a short one. It works. And the nut is off there. Now, we just need to separate this, and I'm going to try that pickle fork. Not really worried about trying to save the integrity of this ball joint because it's already damaged. There it is. It's out. Now we just got to separate the top and we're ready to pull it out and have something easier to work on. It will take the longer socket. Gently tap it. And it's off. Okay, as you can see, we've gotten the spindle off now. Both the bottom, both the upper and lower ball joints were not difficult to separate at all. Just a few taps and they actually came out of the control arms. So now I've got the spindle separate with the ball joint. We're going to work on getting that little sucker out. Okay, so the tool, the ball joint tool to remove the ball joint didn't work, at least with the setting, the cups and the sleeves that I have. I ultimately turned the spindle on its end here, straight up, used a large socket over the end of the ball joint, and used this, and it took about 10 minutes and it popped right out. Now putting the new ball joint in, the new ball joint is coming in this way, going in this way. The new ball joint is going in this way, so I'm going to push the base into the controller, or the spindle. Pointed this way, I'm going to be pushing it down into the spindle. It's 22 millimeter. So let's see how this goes. You almost need 3 hands to make this thing work. It's seated all the way in. Let's take this off. Looks good. Ball joint's in place. The only thing I have to do now is to install the grease fitting and put it all back together, and of course grease it before putting a load on it. Okay, I'm installing the grease fitting now. I didn't see it in the package at first, but it was there. And this takes 8 millimeter. Before we install it, I think I'm going to go ahead and grease it. Okay, one thing I found, and this is true of this case as well, is the fitting I just put in, although it's an 8 millimeter, just like the old one that I removed, the actual head of the grease fitting is slightly different. It's small enough that my grease fitting attachment tool easily slides over it and doesn't attach, which means when I start squirting the grease, it's all going to come out everywhere. So we need to remove this fitting and install the one from the previous fitting, previous ball joint. And believe it or not, I bought a whole set of these grease fittings from Harbor Freight so that they would all be the same size. That was something else that was pretty weird last time. I ordered all the ball joints front and rear, and when they arrived, even though they were all Moog, there were 2 different size grease fittings. So that created a problem in being able to grease the joints. So I went to the Harbor Freight and bought a little box. It's like $5.99 with 200 in it. And that way I had the same size all the way around. And it came with an assortment of 45 degree, 90 degree, and straight fittings, so that in some applications a straight fitting doesn't work. In the lower joint it will. In the upper, if I remember correctly, the upper joints on this Jeep are not available separately. You have to buy the whole control arm. They're not greasable. And that's enough. When you're filling it up and you can see the rubber boots start to expand on the other side, you know you've got enough. It's getting in there. Time to reassemble. They're installed, just need to tighten them up, torque them to spec. Put the tie rod in back in and reassemble the brakes, and we're about done. Point, we've loosely attached the upper ball joint nut, the lower ball joint nut, and we can get the tie rod in there in just a minute. I'm going to go ahead and torque these to spec, do the tie rod in, then it's just a matter of reassembling the brakes and putting it back together. Okay, the torque specification for each of the ball joints is 60 foot-pounds. Foot-pounds there. Yeah, there we go. 60 foot-pounds upper and lower. Tie rod in place. It had a castle nut right here. Tie rod end is 80 foot-pounds. As a bonus at the end, I'll put up a picture that shows the torque specifications for the front end suspension parts that we've just messed with, and a few others, and the steering. And it's out of a factory Jeep manual. Can't get better than that. There's 80. Okay, let's see. Put a cotter pin back in place. Okay, nuts torqued and the cotter pins in place. Upper and lower ball joints are torqued. Now it's a matter of putting our brakes back together. Start to put the rotor back in place. Okay, I did not see a caliper bracket mounting torque spec, so I'm just going to make it tight. But the caliper itself is 11 foot-pounds. Those two are tight, those two are tight. This has been torqued and in place, these two are torqued and in place. That's it. Now we'll just put the wheel back on. Okay, we got it done. What did we learn from this? First of all, when you replace the ball joint the first time, make sure it's greased well before you actually put a pressure and load on it and start driving it. That's the biggest lesson, I suppose. Anyway, I hope you learned a little something from this, from my mistakes. I make them all the time, so I get to make other videos showing how I fix my own mistakes. Anyway, as I promised, I'll show you a couple of pictures of from the Jeep manual that shows the torque specifications for the front end parts as well as the suspension steering. Maybe they'll give you some information that you don't already have. Anyway, thanks for joining me. Hope you learned something. Please subscribe. We'll have more videos coming out as time goes by, and really appreciate a thumbs up. Have a great day. Here's a 2002 service manual for Jeep Liberty from Chrysler. Under the front suspension, here are the torque specifications. Here are some more torque specifications. These are for brakes. This is not all of the torque specs. There are several located throughout the chapter, but these are some of the main ones. A few more in that same chapter. Here was some of the information on the torque specs when I torqued down the tie rod end.